In this video, we're going to look at reading files from that are stored on your computer. And in this part, we're mostly looking at the idea of text files. In other words, ones that if we were to open it up in some sort of text editor, we could look at it and understand, words and things like that. So we want to see basically a common pattern for reading information from a file, and then to use something called a scanner to pull out chunks of that text. So some exceptions in Java are optional. For example, that index out of bounds. You're not forced to account for it. I think there's an idea that basically that normal code shouldn't have those index out of bounds. Like, why would you ever be doing that in the first place? But some Java forces us to handle. So for example, there's like a file not found exception that can be thrown if you try to open a file that's not there. And the problem is you can't really predict if that file is there or not. So there's no way to completely safeguard against that happening. And so Java is saying, hey, if you're going to try to do this operation, you need to have some kind of try-catch to manage it. And so unlike the one above with the strings, where we sort of could choose to either let the program crash or try to wrap it in a try-catch, with the file stuff, Java's going to yell at us until we actually do the try-catch part. So to read from a file, we need two new classes that work together in this case. One is a type called scanner, and you've seen a few references to that in the Runestone ebook. And it's basically a very general purpose, very powerful class to read some sort of stream of text. That text could come from typing on a keyboard. It could come from like a string, actually. It just treats that as sort of a bunch of characters coming by. And it also can come from a file. And the scanner can basically pull out lines or words, things separated by a white space. It can actually test if the thing you're pulling out is best represented as a string, or it can say, hey, that looks like a number, like it's a string number like 12, but you can turn it into an int. So it's very flexible and used in a lot of different contexts. But it has its own sort of particular structure that we need to learn. And then a file, which we think of as something that's stored on a computer, is also a type, a Java type, and it basically knows how to get information from your computer's hard drive from a particular location on the drive, and it actually is used. You can use that to feed a scanner, and the scanner then pulls out the information for you. So the basic approach to read a file is you need some sort of file name. In other words, it puts the name of the file, and you open the file. And then you use a scanner to read from that file. And at the end, you're supposed to close the file to make sure everything's all cleaned up nicely. So the file name is just a string. And they typically have a dot extension on the end. Most files on your computer have that. And sometimes it's hidden, like on Windows, unless you click a little box, you'll just see sample and some icon that makes you think it's like some sort of text file. And if you go into your system preferences, you can basically set it so that it says show all extensions. And as you do computer science stuff, it's probably better to show that so you kind of know what the actual file name is. We can make a text file in Eclipse. So I'm going to click over here. I want a new, it's sort of funny, and I want an untitled text file. Sure. It makes this untitled file. I can say, hi, my name is David. Just have a couple lines of code. Goodbye. And the question is, how do I can save it. Whoa, okay. Now what's the file name? And where do I want to save it in my project folder. Let's see if it's still named Untitled. I forgot to give it a good name. So let's see if we can see it somewhere in this folder. Okay, Untitled 1. I'm going to right click on it and rename it to be sample text.txt. I hope I'm doing the right thing here. Okay, sample text.txt. It has these 3 lines of code 3 lines of text in it. Okay, so you could also drag a text file into the project, but the thing is, notice I didn't put it down in the package here. I put it in the project folder. Is it in? I think that's okay. And that's, if you just give that name, that's where it's going to look for it. If you have it in a different place, it won't find it. Okay, that's a common problem. So, okay, let's go back here, sample text.txt, and let's try to write some code to maybe open this file. All right, so I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to capture this. I can use the file name as a literal, but I'm just going to kind of lay out the parts here. Equals sample text.txt. I'm going to use this file type to make a file variable. And again, we use the new keyword to say I want it. So again, this is saying this is a variable of this type, and then we're going to assign it a new object of the file type, and I give it the file name. So it just wants that bit of text, and it'll say it's going to go try to find it. Now it's complaining, kind of like with picture. It says, I don't know what this thing file is, so I need to import file. And it added an import Java IO file. IO means input output. And it's okay with that then. Then from the file, I make a scanner, and I'm going to call it FS file scanner. Again, I normally discourage this, but I want to fit it on my little bit of screen I have here. And again, that's the name of the variable. It's a type scanner, and it's going to be a new scanner that I make out of pardon me, the file, not the file name, but out of the file, right? And this has the same problem. I need to import scanner so it knows about it. And okay, so here's the thing. It is complaining that when I make a scanner out of a file, there's a reasonable chance that that file doesn't exist and it's going to fail. And it is saying you need to fix this. All right. So we're going to wrap this in a try catch block, and it always seems a little too late. It seems like it should throw it here, to be honest, right? Like, why does it not complain? But it's not until you try to use it that it's going to complain. I can actually use the quick fix here, surround with try catch, and so now I am trying to open this file with the scanner. We're not trying to read anything yet. We're just saying, hey, get started. And if that causes an error, we're going to print some kind of error message. Now, actually, this print stack trace prints the exact same error that you get if the error happened in the first place. So it's kind of hard to distinguish that something happened here. Sometimes I kind of like that. Well, you should be just make it a little clearer what's going on. Let's print out that get message thing instead, because that's a little more like human oriented. Get message. All right, if I run this, nothing should happen because it's doing all this stuff up here. Let's comment this out. Makes it a little confusing, right? All right, run it again. Okay, it just says it's finished here and nothing happened. Let's just kind of put in this little marker so we kind of understand what's going on. I like to sometimes just say done here in these programs that don't do anything, just so something happens. It says done. All right. Let's make this wrong. So that file name does not exist in the project. And here it says the error message is this file name. There's no such file or directory. So this threw an error, and we caught it down here. All right. So we're not reading it yet, but this is just setting up the basic structure. Now, with a scanner, you make a scanner, and then you use it. And basically, the basic approach is that you repeatedly ask, if there is a line of text to read out of the file. And if there is, then you get it, this next line. All right, so this is like a loop that we're going to have that we read, we check it, and then get it, check it, and get it. If you just try to get it, it's just going to go until it runs out of stuff, and that throws a different error, like read past the end of file error or something like that. But you should always, before you try to get something from a scanner, you should always protect it by asking if it has that thing available to read. Okay, so let's just see how to do this. We set up, I'm going to set this back to sample text. We open the file. We're going to try to use it in a scanner. And then we're going to ask, while that scanner has another line of text to read, I'm going to get that line and assign it to some variable line. Next line. And I'm going to just print it out. Again, maybe could store it in an array or something, or do some computation on it, but I'm going to just print out line. And when I am done with all the lines, in other words, when the while loop is finished, I should close that file. All right, so I'm going to run this now, and it prints out each line one at a time as it finds them, and then it's finished. All right, it did not throw an exception here, so that's good. Let me comment this line out and just see if it complains about something. Here it's got the yellow underline, that's a warning, right? And it's saying the file fs is never closed. So it's warning us. It's called a resource leak. Basically, actually when I leave like main or leave a method, it will clean itself up anyway. But if you have enough of those things, at some point you can overwhelm your system. So it's good to close your scanner after you're done with it. Okay, so this, again, there's a lot of new stuff here, right? Where the exceptions are kind of new. And then this whole file scanner stuff is pretty new. Well, it's definitely new. But what I want, this is a case where in some ways it's okay to just follow this pattern carefully as long as it works for what you're trying to do. All right? You don't have to know, we'll learn more about this stuff, but you don't have to learn everything at once. But basically, again, we have a file name, we create a file out of the file name, we create a scanner out of that file. We ask the scanner if it has a line of text available in the file, and if it is, we get that line. This basically moves the scanner to the next line, so when it asks if there's another line, it looks at that and says, yes, it is. And we get it. We repeat while there's still lines to get. As soon as there's not another next line, we close it, we jump over the catch, and we just say done. Hi, my name is David, goodbye, done. All right. Now, there's a bit of a problem here, and that is it's possible there's some sort of error that happens here and we never close the scanner. In other words, some other exception happens and we jump out, we catch it somewhere, and we don't close it. I can't really close it because this FS only has scope in the try block. Also note that Java likes to put the catch up here. I think that's actually probably good style too. I think I put it on the next line. And this is probably a little more traditional here. Anyway, this FS only has scope in here, so it's not like I could catch it and close it down here, because FS doesn't exist in this scope, right? So there's a bit of a problem here. There's another form of the try catch called try with resources that is sort of the recommended form to use in this particular case. And that is you put in here this resource you're going to try to use. So the syntax gets even more complicated. And then I use it down here. And the thing is, I don't explicitly close it. This thing will close it for me when that try block exits. Okay? So basically at some point they realize, okay, we have this complicated try catch mechanism. It has a little flaw in that it might allow us to skip over code that's necessary to clean up whatever we're doing up here. And so they added a different form of the try catch where here they have this thing that needs to be closed. We use it down here. If there were an exception here, as it leaves that try block, it would automatically try to close that for us. All right. And even if it's successful and just leaves the try block and goes on, it would still close it for us. Again, this is something I do not just type out of my head when I realize I need something like this. I go and find some resource that says, how do I do a try with resources? And it shows me this basic structure of putting this line inside the parentheses. This code, of course, here is whatever you want it to be. But again, this is its own structure for a scanner that is pretty common. You open a scanner, you have a while loop, you check to see if there's something available, and you get it if it is, and you do something with it. So again, that's something that maybe you need a little reminding of how that looks, but you go check it out, and it reminds you of that structure, and then you can kind of adapt it to your own needs. So all these things, again, are fairly complicated, but you have to be willing to follow the pattern carefully and use it as long as it doesn't give you any trouble, right? Okay, so I think there's a lot of stuff here, and we will again be exercising this, and you'll get a little more comfortable with it, but the basic pattern, you need to start going back and looking and seeing what's going on here. Okay.